1 minute delay.
Yes. Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, February 6th, 7 institutions. As we customarily do, it's a Tuesday, so we're gonna go around and introduce ourselves. We're a few committee members short, but we have who we have.
We have who we have, and I am Senator Wendy Harrison, representing the Wyndham District.
Scott Moore, Joint Fiscal Office.
Brian Collmore, State Senator from the Rutland District.
And the Lehman Committee Assistant.
Senator Russ Ingles from the Essex District. And welcome to anybody who might be watching. And we have with us today, Mr. Scott Moore, Legislative Financial Manager from Joint Fiscal Office. And he's gonna go down with us on this new spreadsheet. So welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you. It was good, thank you. Glad to have you. So before we get too far into it, I didn't want to let you know I have an updated spreadsheet.
Oh, nice.
Only because of color change.
Okay.
Listening to Nick Crittler's testimony last week, I had inadvertently colored, a couple lines. I'll point them out to you. Blue instead of yellows. It's a very small, change, but
Blue is the cat thing.
no, blue is the cash, correct, yeah. And I can point them out to you when I get there, so. As we start looking at the spreadsheet for the capital bill, I did wanna just talk about the changes that I made from the, document that the administration has built for the capital bill adjustment. And Nick, you've kind of gone through these, already, but I wanna just verify and make sure everyone knew what we were doing, so. This is the old sheet from the, administration.
Yeah.
I changed it from green to gray, the border coloring, mostly just to distinguish, like, hey, you know, the green one is from the governor's office and the gray one is what I carry to you guys. So that was one of the big changes. All of the yellow highlights that are on here that were on the old sheet are carried over to the new sheet. Especially now because I made that one change, and I'll show you, I inadvertently, not shaded two cells yellow when I should have, but I'll point it out.
So the yellows are changes, correct?
The others are changes that the governor has recommended
Mm-hmm.
from what was passed with Act 69 last year.
Okay.
Correct. I did add columns for bonded and cash, so that way in any one particular line will show one column for any bonded dollars, one column for any cash dollars. You'll see that for FY 24 and FY 25, both in the Act 69 as well as in what the government recommended.
How much, Scott, should we be paying attention to FY 24, as it's going? I mean, is there gonna be very many changes to FY 24 at all?
As you look through the governor's recommended, you can definitely see quickly visually, there's not that many changes, FY 24. Most of the changes would be for the FY 25 version.
So anything that isn't highlighted in yellow, in FY 20, anything that's highlighted in FY, or in 24 is changed.
Correct.
Okay, so that's really where we need to.
Yeah.
Other than that, any of those other dollars, other than when we get ready to report,
Exactly.
just in case we get asked questions about that, then we don't really have to worry much about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I follow up on that question?
Yes, you can.
So, thank you. The, FY 24, which we're in now, we're a little bit more than halfway through.
Correct. June 30th is when FY 24 ends.
Yep, so, is a field without highlights, is that safe to assume that that is what will be spent?
It's a great question. It is safe to assume that was what was appropriated, whether or not it will be spent, I don't know. It will depend agency to agency. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute.
Okay.
About those dollars, that will help answer the question.
Okay, thanks.
One of the things I did do was the governor recommended spreadsheet, this green one, did have some columns at the very end were delta between the two. I removed those just to get more real estate on the spreadsheet. But they're here on the spreadsheet and my Excel sheet. I just hid them, so when we print them out, we actually have some room and we can see. I find that as I get older, it's harder to see the little numbers, so more room in the spreadsheet better. And then the big thing is we, talked about already, anything that's shaded in blue used to be in section 18, that cash section. And what I've done is I've basically taken it from down below in section 18 and I've incorporated it into any section where it was needed. What that will do is in some instances, for instance, on line 3, that's blue here, there was appropriation for bonded dollars and cash dollars. You can see in FY 24, there's 425,000 bonded, 400,000 cash. So now I've coalesced those two lines to one line. Sometimes, looking down, for instance, line 17 through 30, there was no exact match for those particular sections, so I just pulled them up into this section here. It wasn't a line item which clearly indicated they belong together. They might be adjacent in terms of looking at section 3 when we talk about Department of Corrections changes to different St. Johnsbury versus Northwest. They might have all to do with the HVAC changes, but they're not, dollar for dollar exactly that particular agency for that facility, I should say. But I tried to make sure everything made sense as we put it together. So otherwise, all of the cash is rolled up into these different various sections. And again, like I said, all of the yellow highlights are the governor recommended changes from before to now. Then I did take all of the numbering on the sides and the top. So on this other sheet here, where they might be saying, look at line 32 and the governor's recommended, that might not necessarily correspond to the new sheet because I renumbered all of the numbers on the side. One other thing I do want to point out to you, when we get to, if you turn to the very last page, just look for it. Line 193, 194, that last the section that talks about the summary of general obligation funds. The way this sheet was originally designed for the administration, it's a budget, so your sources and uses match. Well, now we've taken all of the cash and put it in as an expense. I added a line 193, I believe. That's the cash for capital and essential investments, just so that way we can see a balance, if you will. So looking at line 191, total spending 172 million. Then the revenues available 122 million. Well, you might think, well, we're doing a deficit budget, $50 million. That can't be right. And it's because the fact that the $49 million in cash is that difference, just so you understand what I did there. So those are the basic changes, mechanics of what I did. There were a couple of different things that I'd love to point out just to bring to our attention. And some of these things they may have already talked about, who's in here last week talked about things. This might be a little bit redundant, but I do want to call to your attention line 28 on my sheet, which is the St. Albans garage replacement.
Yeah, good, perfect. That's exactly right where I was going.
Yeah.
So good, thank you.
So in last year's big bill, that was appropriated. That money was appropriated. And what the administration is suggesting, you see this highlighted in yellow, that it's a capital project, and as such, a capital project belongs in the capital bill. They're not suggesting, as far as I understand, and what hearing they said last week, they're not saying this is new money. They're not saying it needs to be a source of money for it. It's not new. It's just a shift from where it was reported to the big bill last year. And now they're suggesting it belongs over here in the capital bill.
Okay, so just telling you where the ongoing discussions are about that. That's gonna be a tough sell. But anyways, we still have that conversation yet to be had,
Yeah.
Which I'll have with Senator Kitchell. But
And
I appreciate that because now that you've said exactly what you said, I was just wondering how did that show up? Where is it at? I know that, so that I understand now. So,
Yeah.
so that is in sub account A. And that's where that money is, and the government, and we have in that sub account about $11.8 million, it was $10 million, and we had some, so it was $11.8 million. And the governor would like that dollars to come back into, institutions and, be a fund controlled by that. There's gonna be some argument from appropriations, that's, sub account A, sub account B, stay where it is. We don't really have a dog in the fight on sub account B, because that's match money for all the projects that we had. Most of that money's match monies, for the clean water projects that we had coming from the federal government. But that 11.8 plus dollars that are in sub account A has a big importance to us, just like we had saw the other day. There was 10 or 20 projects tied to that monies, and so anyways, so those are the changes that we might see that's going on. I heard through the grapevine that maybe all of that $11.8 million isn't safe. I plan to have that conversation this week with Senator Kitchell, and just to let us know as we go down through where we're at. So that's where it's at.
So the operational budget was decreased by a similar amount of 11.8 or 9, whatever it was.
Right, that's the mechanics.
So line by line, it just moves across to a different.
Correct. Yeah, so
Okay.
one of the things that was raised in the House Committee for Corrections and Institutions was the fact that there might still be dollar amounts in the Department of Transportation budget for this same project. And then it's hard to know what all goes together. One of the reasons I put the cash.
The 3.5 you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, in that committee, I don't see that much money sitting around over there, to be honest with you. It's probably only one of the departments that actually is experiencing loss in revenue.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Right, and we talked about the loss of revenue there, and that's something that needs to be addressed, obviously. It's existed for a while, so this isn't the only transportation capital project. I'm sure, I mean, there's probably 100 capital projects.
I don't think so.
I mean, road
No,
projects,
No, I
Common
think the only reason why
capital.
this got going on that is because we had some cash and we just did some balancing at the end of the year, last year, and so. If I was reminded of it, I remember it very well, but I kind of remember it, and it was just a balancing thing, because we had some cash and we were just trying to figure out where we're doing it. We did this right here, and I think we did $1 million in paving or something like that, or maybe $1.5 million in paving.
Okay, but your paving budget and road building is, I mean, the transportation budget is, there's a lot in that category, I'm sure.
Oh, there was, last year was
Multiple millions.
140 million, and this
Yeah.
year was 130 million.
That's what I'm getting at, okay.
But
So I just wanna mention that if we were doing fund accounting the way it should be done, the transportation fund would fund transportation
Right.
items.
Along the same lines, we look down at line 41. Yep, this is the psychiatric youth facility. There's $9.2 million there. In the same vein of the garage we saw earlier, the 3.5 million. The 9.2 million was appropriated in different legislation, and they're just suggesting that it belongs under a capital bill. Well, the same way that the garage is. And if you-
Except just one thing, that its sources of revenue are more general fund,
Correct.
and which makes it different to me.
And then on the administration capital bill adjustment, this green sheet, you will see both of those things. And they have them in blue here, on lines 198, 199, so. I've just transferred them on this sheet, but they did list them. I did want to point out that they're not in Act 69. So that's why the governor pointed to them and highlighted them on the sheet. The other thing we want to point out too.
Can I ask another, on the psychiatric facility, were those funds in bucket A also?
I don't remember.
that's what I'm looking for right now, to be
Okay.
fair, so that's a good question. Give me a minute, I'll find it.
Because the reason the transportation one, although it's in the wrong fund, we did have it. So it's not,
No,
that
it
changed
wasn't.
our fund balance. Oh,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so 10 projects totaling $10 million. And, and, yeah, that's not, no, it's not in there. We have, I can name them, we have, some of them won't be in them, but we have BGS reuse planning and contingency for 250,000. We have BTS Burlington 32 Cherry parking garage repairs, $2.3 million. We have Montpelier 120 State Street HVAC steam lines and interior renovations for $2 million. We have Judiciary Washington County Superior Court renovations, $1 million. We have public safety, special teams, facility and storage, 1 million. We have public safety, Rutland Field Station, 1 million. We have Vermont Home, remember the 1.5 million from the Veterans Home, Vermont, Brandon and Cardinal renovation design work, 1.5, remember that one? We have Newport Courthouse replacement planning and design, 500,000. We have Montpelier 133, 109, state planning for tunnel waterproofing, 250,000, and we have Montpelier 111 state renovations of stack areas, HVAC upgrades and elevator replacement for 200,000, totaling $10 million. And then we had some another, and then we actually, I think that whole fund was cash fund A transfer is 10,688,747, together with 873,279 in interest accrued to fund per 32 BSA 100B, blah, blah, blah. This provides a total of 11.562 million in FY25 to be appropriated from the cash fund after funding the 10 million across the 10 projects listed above. This leaves 1.562 million for additional investments in FY25. The government's recommended capital BAA proposing allocating 1 million of this amount to accommodate cost increases to the Barry McFarland building re-roof and facade repair project, and the remainder to fund a portion of necessary HVAC upgrades to correctional facilities across the state. And that's in this book right here, under tab cash fund crossing. Yep, so
thank you.
you're welcome.
So where did this 9.2 million, I mean, that's a tremendous amount. It's more than all of,
Senator, I'm happy to look in to see where it lived in the big bill last year.
so it was in the big bill last year,
That's my understanding.
at that amount.
And I apologize, I don't want to all put any words in Nick's mouth as to
Sure.
how things happened, and I'm sure you'd have to come back and talk about those two items.
Okay.
But I'm also happy to go look and dive in and see where that $9.2 million comes from. With that said, I would also point you to lines 99 and 100, which are on page 3. And 99 and 100 is the clean water and it's the pollution control. In column N, there is 1.6 million and 3.3 million. Those two cells, I had inadvertently colored them blue on the previous spreadsheet. So it's new spreadsheet, now they're yellow. But I thought it was important because the government recommended those changes. So I want to make sure that you did see those changes because all the changes he recommended in his budget are in yellow. And so those, so I inadvertently colored them blue. So those are changes I had made.
And what were the numbers?
The numbers are the same. Is the color. is-
No, I mean, from the
Oh,
original
the original?
budget.
So we look at FY25 bonded, we can see column L. Would be, column F and column L essentially. F over here, center is the
Right,
69.
so F and G are the same. But FY25 bonded was nothing, and so now it's 1.6 and 3.3.
Right. So the governor is suggesting is bonded for FY25, that we add 1.6 million.
Right, no,
Like,
right, so where did
It's all-
that come from?
Just just to make sure I understand, the
Oh.
$1.6 million is for match money? Bonded dollars for match money, is that what the parentheses say? Help us understand.
Well,
Yeah,
I remember what it is. We were told that 6 million at the bottom of on line 106.
Yep.
That was the request for the entire year of FY 25. And so that 6 million in column H has now been parsed out in
Between those
column
four
N
categories.
to be the different categories, because they didn't know the different categories when they did the budget last year.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
I
exactly-
remember
Yeah,
Nick
that's what
telling
Nick was
us.
saying last week.
Yes.
Exactly,
Yes,
perfect, good job. But I apologize for
no,
having called them blue instead of yellow. So those are the basic changes of it. And the big ticket I just want to point out to you, as to why, and how to go around with recommendations. I'm not privy to all of those thoughts, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was, I've been following the House Committee in terms of what they've gone through, and Senator, to answer your original question about how much money has been expended or accounted for. What the House Committee has done is they've had testimony basically on sections 2 and 3, starting section 4. And I've been following along, you've had Commissioner Fitchin here a number of times, and then the same kind of idea of this project had X amount appropriated, X amount expended, X amount obligated. So I don't want to say that, like column F, all that money has been spent or obligated. They don't know exactly for every single project, but I do know that they are going through, and in the House Committee, they're taking testimony as to, how much were you given, how much did you spend, how much is left, and how much more might you need.
okay, great, so I can look at that.
They're not doing a markup yet for changing it in the bill. But they have just gone through and listened to the different agencies come on.
Okay.
So they have, 2:00 today, they're going to start looking at section 4. Which I will read.
Immersion community.
How much you committed about, yeah, so if people coming in this afternoon.
Great.
When you look at the whole thing, it's kind of interesting how few things have changed in
Mm,
a way, which is good.
that's true, and the clean water doesn't really count as changing, they just allocated it.
I think, just speaking out loud. I don't think we really have to duplicate exactly what the House is doing as far as the sections that they're going over. I mean, to be honest with you, when you look at, let's just kind of look at section 4. We look at that right there, that's pretty much self-explanatory, right? I mean, no matter where it goes and all that, I mean, that's not gonna change much. We know that from doing it before, because we're all professionals, we're all pros at this. So we understand that. So we, I don't think there's anything in there that we're gonna have a hard time understanding. Looking at section 5, looking at that a little bit, I don't really see a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Nope.
I guess the point I'm gonna make is that maybe, and I think that we're gonna start that, but looking down through, maybe we ought to pick the sections that, might cause us the most confusion. I'm looking at section 10 right now, in this clean water part of it, where some of these money got switched around, as Senator Harrison pointed out, as far as how that 6 million got switched around, so maybe we wanna have some conversations about that, or just, absolutely possibly be able to understand what's going on there, so that there's no confusion. That's what we're trying to avoid, or that's what I'm trying to avoid anyways. So any of these sections that, that we can jump into and have the folks in and be able to.
Yeah, well, the other thing, I think it's maybe a little early to do it, but we each had a section
Right,
or sections that we were responsible for.
right.
Are we gonna do the same?
We're gonna do the same thing. The only thing we're gonna try to do is maybe wait a little bit later in the process. They just don't want us to jump around as much as what we did. That was just the only criticism that we had, where we jumped around quite so much. So we might want to be more of experts on all of it a little bit more, where last time I was saying, okay, you guys focus on this, you focus on that. So we might just say, okay, we're gonna just go right down through and keep it kind of uniformed and just go right down through the bill. So you might take some sections that you're not really familiar with, historically, and then we'll just, okay, you got 2 and 3, I'll take 4 and 5, and let's keep it from going back to back. I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm not going to follow anybody's rule if I think my committee is, gonna be uncomfortable and doing it a certain way, but.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's just confusing that, you guys binged and bonged so much, which I don't think it was confusing. I thought we did it very, very well, but,
Well, that's how the T-bill always got done.
right, so,
Well, maybe if we do it a second time, they'll get used to it. Are you talking about the floor report?
yeah, so.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that to you guys as we get going, but yes, the answer to your question is,
Of
let's.
course, I don't remember what sections.
Yeah. Well, it's really where your interests lie, a lot of it, so that you can explain it better, but I think I think as each time that we get a new copy of it, there's more questions that pop up, that we just need to understand it a little bit better. And, if we can just spend another, week and a half or so, just
Yeah.
seeing the numbers and making sure that no matter where the discussion lies, you guys can explain it. I wanna be able to do the same thing, which I think I can, but, so, like I said, we know the easy sections, we don't wanna discount them. But let's go into the sections that are a little bit tougher and, needs a little bit more explaining and get those folks in.
Yeah, and can I
Yeah,
respond to that?
absolutely,
So, I think section 10 fits that category, and
Yes, I
not
do.
just because it's complicated, but because it's also one where we wanna make sure we have the funding, the match funding. We talked a lot about that last year.
Absolutely,
And things may have changed since the flood, so I think section 10 is important, and section 9 is in the same category, that's A and R.
Yep.
And those are other, mostly water related.
yeah,
And then I think section 3, human services, where that's where we have the correctional facilities,
Yeah.
and now there's psychiatric youth and patient facility.
Yeah.
I think, to me, those 3, and BGS is always interesting.
but we're seeing those guys a lot, but yeah,
Right.
you're right, so
So I think 3 and 9 and 10,
Yeah.
to me,
I would agree with that. What else, Scott?
That's the big highlights. I do wanna make sure you know I'm here to help support, whatever your questions. Holler and up and running.
You've been great, we appreciate it, appreciate you watching in on us,
Yes, sir.
and, keep us out of trouble.
Yeah.
And,
I miss seeing Senator Harrison every single day.
well, I'll just have a lot of questions, but that won't be a problem.
There's not a problem, but we need to make sure that you're very well versed and understood.
It's been a pleasure to get out of my Senate Economic Development room and come down and see you all. So,
Yeah.
And we still talk about housing, or actually people talking about housing to us. Do you remember when we were listening to the Windsor report, the plan for the property? Someone said that they had talked to a developer who was so busy building high-end houses that had a higher margin that he felt guilty at night not being able to help the housing situation. So it comes up.
Okay, so we're kind of filled up this week as far as, what we have already, so maybe next week we can start on those sections 3, 9, and 10. And,
Well, and the person tomorrow from DEC
we have some,
could help with 9 and 10 possibly.
yeah, they're only in here for about 15 minutes, tomorrow, so,
They're specifically addressing the flooding costs
so.
to the agency.
And that's kind of really what they wanted to talk about, what they have time for. But, we do have some time on Friday, if anybody's available in any of those sections of 3, 9, and 10.
I think there's already something else on Friday now.
Okay.
But I'll check it out.
Is there anything in the language that we need to,
What's that?
anything in the language of the bill, the written part of the bill?
I think there will be. I think there will be, unless you guys really wanna tackle that now. I'd like to stay with the numbers for right now. So the
Sure,
language,
that's
we'll,
fine.
we'll make the language work and all that. Let's just, you know, I've got a kind of a steady progress about just attacking these numbers, and attacking these numbers, so that we can. So that when you get ask those difficult questions on the floor, you don't gotta hum. I've been there, I know how it is,
I know how it is
so,
too.
yeah.
Well, that's what I just said. I believe my chair.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you just left the building. But, well, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in and appreciate the support and, we will reach out, I promise.
I will be at your service, whatever you need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Nice to see you.
So anything else, guys, as you look down through there, it's just starting to get clear and clear every time we do it, but, I kind of wish I would have had these spreadsheets right from the beginning. They're a lot more helpful than the first one we got. That first one we got was, frustrating this, all heck.
This is helpful. I like how Scott did it.
So this Friday is not on your schedule because it was arranged this morning, but the big E is the topic.
Okay,
Of the Agency of Agriculture.
okay, good. That's always good.
But for next week, I'll get sections 3, 9, and 10.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make next week a numbers week.
Okay,
Yeah, and,
Do you want Nick in for any of that?
I think it would be very helpful if he was in. Yeah, absolutely. He has a way to, be able to put the numbers across and, if we have any questions and.
My other question is, do you want someone to come in and go over the actual bill, the language?
Well, I think, Senator Harrison has just barely kind of asked that. Let's just,
yeah, I think
let's stick with
later.
the numbers.
Yeah, and that,
Let's stick with the numbers. Let's just keep on pounding these numbers out, pounding the numbers out. And, making sure we understand them. And, I mean, we're doing a really good job of that. So, like I said, I wouldn't want to report this bill tomorrow, but I think that, by the end of next week, I think we're gonna be in pretty good shape as far as understanding where it is. And we'll know some answers from across the hall. That's gonna change a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So picking on Friday, that's always a fun time.
Ready to start?
I think so.